Excellent, excellent. And shit. But back to doing a live. Welcome back. You weren't aware that there was any delay. Anyway, I am now in colder climes, which is why I am rugged up. But today, why do you want to keep your audience interested? I've entitled this one, How to Keep Your Audience Interested. But the first question we should ask is, why? Why do you need to keep your audience interested? Well, you want them to pay attention, don't you? You want them to take in what you're saying, both at a head level and a heart level. Connection with them. And one of the ways of doing this is by modulating your speed. Now, what do I mean by modulation? Okay, cast your mind back to when you were at school. Did you have a teacher who used to be a bit of a monotone and kept on the same tone all the way through, and it was a bit boring and it had you falling asleep? Now, what I've shown you there is the same tone. There was no modulation in pitch. There was no modulation in energy. And you fell asleep, didn't you? Because you got lulled into that same sound. If you haven't heard me talk about this before, welcome to a new revelation. We are hardwired for novelty. When something new happens, something exciting happens, oh, it's got my attention. What's happening now? Where do we go from here? So if you have that same teacher who's on the one level the whole time, the one pitch the whole time, even if the speed is changing, you're going to lose concentration. You're going to be off thinking about something else. If you're in a Zoom room, you may well find people pick this up. If you're in a physical environment, very well might find people picking up the phone, not even being subtle about the fact that you've lost them. So modulation, it's a bit of a technical term, but I want to think today about speed, modulating speed. Now, the example I've given you was modulating on the pitch. Think about the speed for a minute. What can you do to play with the speed? You can speed things up, particularly when you get excited, you speed things up and it gets, ooh. And people want to know more. Now, there are some caveats with increasing your speed. If you have a strong accent, then it gets stronger as you're excited and you speed up. However, I'm asking you to consider consciously changing up the speed. Very fun exercise. We had a very fun exercise yesterday with a group I was involved with, where there was a beat set. I don't think you can probably hear this click, but you can see that I'm clicking. There was a beat set, and we had to stick to the rhythm. Now, we'd already pre-prepared a quick talk, only a 2-minute one. But there was initially a sound, a background sound that was very lilting and slow and didn't have much of a speed, and it was pretty hypnotic. And then up came this particular rhythm, and it was very exciting. Think about contrasting in that respect a lilting lullaby. If you're into music, classical music, think of something like Brahms' Lullaby, going into rap. Whoa, that's a big contrast. Now, I'm not suggesting that you do this, but do it as a fun exercise. Set yourself a beat. Now, if you want to put a metronome on it, fair enough if you've got one, if you're a musician. If not, find a track. Find a track on the internet. Look for rhythms and start playing around with it. Have some fun with it. Intentionally change the speed. Now, that will give you the chance of doing it for a specific period of time. But what I'm inviting you to do is to simply do it for an exercise, to get used to that change in modulation, that change in speed. Then, once you come out of the exercise, you can think about how you can do it in the moment. What are those things in your talk that you're saying that require a bit of extra energy? And you can speed up around those. And then that will lead us into pausing, which I'm going to cover next week. So have a play with this. Find a track from an everyday life situation. I've spent 20 years in Scotland. My heritage is in Scotland. And my father, I remember him commenting that during the war, when they were out on parade, and they heard pipes playing, it didn't matter what speed they were marching at, they all went to the speed of the pipes because that conveyed, that carried much further. The reason I'm telling you this is playing around with it. If you are conscious about how you change your speed, it will get to the unconscious of your audience. And as I said, it'll bring them along. It'll keep them on the edge of their seats. What's coming next? Isn't that what you want? Now, I'm being a little bit, maybe a bit too dramatic on this, but I'm doing it consciously for a point. Start having fun with preparing your talks. When you are conscious about the speed you are using, you can mess around with it. You can play around with it. Have some fun with this. As I say, set a track. And when you do it, you can do it like this. You can do it according to the beat. When you consciously play with something, then you yourself can take it from your conscious to your unconscious. Let it play. And then you can play out that level of understanding in terms of speed. So I invite you this week to have some play with this, particularly around the speed. And as I said, next week, we're going to look a little bit more about the pausing, which comes along with speed. And this is all part of pillar number 4 in the 9 pillars of influential communication. We're talking about the power of your voice. Have some fun with this, play with it. Record yourself. That's the best way of doing it. Whether you do an audio recording, because we're focusing on the power of voice, or do it on a video, because you'll be aware that actually you don't do things in isolation. As you speed up and slow down with your voice, the speed, you will also be doing other things with your whole body. The body language will come into this as well. But my invitation to you this week is to play, consciously take things apart and play with the modulation. See if you can do that to a rhythm. You're not going to be doing this full time, obviously. But when you play with it, you, as I said, you go from the conscious down to the unconscious, and you can then bring that up at will. Have some fun with it this week. Work against those potential nerves, because public speaking is fun. And the more you practice, the more it makes it permanent. Don't worry about perfection. Perfection is the biggest barrier to progress. So let's go out and have some fun this week. Even if it's simply a case of you and your phone recorder, or you and a Zoom call. Do let me know how you get on with this. For now, bye from me.